All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Freezin for NFC North Podcast, episode number 20. This week, we're talking about the NFC North 2022 NFL Draft review and just a crazy interdivision, or is it interdivision trade between the Vikings and the Lions. And we are joined, as always, by Cooper Uneducated Takes. How are you doing, sir?
Oh, feeling good. I've processed the draft and I've come to a good spot in my mind about it. And that's what I love about the draft is after the draft, there is nothing you can't talk yourself into. So that's why it's a beautiful time of year. So that's what I'm doing.
I can tell. Yeah. I mean, and Vikings Twitter was interesting. We'll get to that eventually on draft night. But we also want to welcome in our guests, our Lions guest this week. And we have Mike and Vince from Detroit Lions Double Take. How's it going?
Going great, man. Appreciate you having us on.
Yeah, thanks.
Absolutely. Thankfully, we've got stuff to talk about that's not Packer related. That's really kind of what we've been inundated with the last year since we started. And so it's nice to talk about other things other than Packers. And really, when you look at it, the Lions had a really good draft. So we can kind of get into that right away. And, how are you guys feeling just overall? We talked a little bit about grades, but I mean, how are you feeling overall about this draft as a whole?
So overall, I think the ultimate feeling in Lions Kingdom right now is like we trust Brad Holmes. Like he made some obvious moves that were bold, going up to get Jameson, taking Pascal maybe seemed a little early, stuff like that, but like he seems to have a plan and we trust him. We definitely trust him.
Yeah, I mean,
we haven't had so
right.
When you look at all the players that they were able to get, I mean, Aiden Hutchinson, the local kid. I mean, that's a really good story to start out with.
Fell to him at 2.
Fell. That's what we talked about that. Like a steal. You don't give any steals at pick 2.
Free falling.
Yeah.
So I mean. It was, it went back and forth whether he would be the number 1 pick. I mean, were you surprised then when it happened that you were able to, pick him up?
Actually, no, not really. We were actually both pretty much agreed that Trayvon Walker was obviously you never know who's going number 1 unless it's Joe Burrow or whatever. We were both agreeing that Trayvon Walker is going number 1. And we were actually high on Malik. That was our big thing. We're super high on Malik. And we believe that maybe he did go like
third round,
87 or something like that. So we figured if Brad Holmes really wants his next QB, if he really wants that next guy, he's going to take him at 2. He's not going to waste his time and try to get somebody in the 3rd round. If he really loved Malik at 2, he would have took him. But I think we're both happy with Aiden.
Didn't like him.
I mean,
yeah, the whole league didn't like him, so that was
exactly right.
Yeah,
it's hard to complain about that.
It's hard to complain about.
Yeah, if you went 3, you'd be like, oh dang, Yeah, no, it was a good draft overall. Came up and got Jameson Williams. That's fun. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so when you talk about the receivers, Jameson Williams is probably, without injury, one of the most talented wide receivers in the draft. I mean, did you think if they were going to go wide receiver, that they might go another way? Or, it was kind of telling, I don't know, when Amon-Ra St. Brown came out and said they needed a wide receiver.
Well, to us, like Brad Holmes has always kind of waited on that wide receiver. So we never thought that a trade up, us personally, would be for a wide receiver, something like that. Jameson was someone that we loved, even throughout the injury. It's an ACL nowadays. I don't think that's as big an issue as it has been in the past, especially at a young age like that. And he's electric, so it could be extremely worth the trade up for sure. Something we haven't had in a long time, Calvin, but.
You see all the memes of the 2 muscle arms kind of locked in, and who would have thought that? I mean, it's probably not out there yet. Who would have thought that we could get a meme of the Vikings and the Lions, like locking hands like that?
All the way, and it was a lengthy hand walk. It was more of like a Sistine Chapel reach, 20 spots up. And that one was tough for me for a minute. Like I know, I was like, I don't know how I feel about this, right? And I think everyone was like, whoa, because when you see it for a first and a second, but it's just really a second swap, and it's like, oh man, like I don't know about that. And then after a while, the nerds wheel up to you with a nice little dose of copium, and you're like, based on expected points added, and it's like, oh, we actually kind of won that one, and it's like, oh, all right, fine, I'll deal with that. But what ended up happening is that trade down unlocked so much additional value beyond that, and it was probably not the greatest value, right, to go down. Like other teams have gotten a lot more than that in the past. It's I might rather have Jameson Williams, but it was we hired a futures trader as our GM, right? So like that's a very futures trader move. He's like, this will be more valuable than that, like because that 34th pick ended up being really valuable, and so that was foreseen. So we'll live with it.
Speaking of valuable,
Jameson Williams.
Speaking of valuable, we have Gridiron Grubb joining us. How are you doing, sir?
I'm great. Sorry to be late to the party, but I'm here.
No reason. You were late, so we've banished you to the Packers corner there. So
that's okay. That's okay. I guess I'm in championship row for being late.
Oh, hold on to that. Well, speaking of building a championship, we're talking about the Lions here, and we are on to the third pick that they had. They, with Josh Pascal, that was kind of an interesting pick. I mean, how are we all feeling about that pick with where he was taken?
We're super high on it. I was high on Pascal even before like all of this. I was pretty high through all my mocks. I had us taking him at like 34. I was still like okay with it. Yeah. He's electric. He's big. My comp with him, I think the comp with him on NFL.com was Emmanuel Ogba.
Yeah.
But I think his ceiling could be a Dwight Freeney. I know, like, hear me out. A Dwight Freeney, if he could get that spin move down that he had, But I just think he's electric. He's fun. He battled a lot of, things in this past, with melanoma, I believe it was, and still became a team captain, put up awesome stats at Kentucky.
Three-time team captain. So I don't know. I'm excited to have him, and I think he's going to be an awesome part to our rotational defensive line. Just to add to that real quick too, I think like going with the Jameson trade, Lions fans we fleeced the Vikings, and we aren't kind of necessarily of that thought because just like you said, like the nerds came out and I think it's a fairly even trade. Like you guys got a lot of starters.
Yeah, I mean, it was even. It was even in a different sense than we're used to trades being even.
In a non-sexy
right?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it could be right, and the result ended up working out better for the Vikings. But yeah, the thought was like, you wish you got better value, but everyone knew you wanted to trade down, and he just took a deal that. It's important. It's good to make positive EV trades with division opponents. Like, so like, I don't care that it was with the Lions. It's like, if you're going to try to make a good trade, try to make it against the Packers, right? Try to make it against the Lions. So yeah. It's interesting. I've come around. Yeah. Right.
If the Lions were going to take Pascal at 34 anyway, if that's just a guy they love,
exactly.
Still got him at 46, then I like the trade even more.
That's crazy. It's possible for sure. Yeah. There was not a run on edges in the middle of the second round like everyone expected. It was more like interior linemen, surprisingly.
What about the rest of this draft? I mean, of the Lions, stands out to you. Obviously, they got a safety, tight end, linebacker, another edge, and then cornerback. What stands out about you about the rest of the draft there?
If we had to pick one name, like the biggest name there is Malcolm Rodriguez, I think. We watched the Lions throughout the whole offseason, and they brought in two other linebackers, Jared Davis, Chris Board, and they like Sean Dion Hamilton, who's a just end of the roster kind of guy, but very athletic, and they don't value linebacker very highly. They've shown that. The Saints have shown that with Dan Campbell and that kind of Aaron Glenn, the way they run that stuff. So we didn't think they were going to draft anybody. Malcolm Rodriguez, getting an All-American that just plays football, even though he's undersized, the way he attacks the ball when he has a free range to the ball, it's amazing. It's fun to watch. And I think he's a leader, culture guy. Like, we're really excited about him.
Yes, he has great pre-reads. He does his job. He's a hard hitter, likes to be physical. We enjoy that. 400 tackles over 4.
4 years. Yeah.
I mean,
with the COVID year.
With the COVID year, that's pretty explosive in my opinion.
And a college season, yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to get him that late, I think is a steal. I mean, I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, and you can be undersized in the NFL now as a linebacker.
Sure.
You can live that way. There's a lot of them, and they're really really good as long as you can live in coverage. And it's good that he probably. I don't know much about him, to be honest, but if he has good run fits, if he's going to be undersized, he's going to have to figure out how to live in coverage. So we'll see how it goes. But you'd love to hit on a pick that late, 6th round pick. Yeah, it doesn't happen often. And so if you can get contributors at all, that's a win.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, yeah. I mean, speaking of wins, I mean, I've probably been the most hopeful on the kind of Lions, some of the players that they have, some of the on offense. I mean, does this has to be probably the most hopeful that you've been as a fan base for a while, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Ever since Calvin and Stafford, probably.
Yeah,
I
man.
thought that was it, you know. But
And even now, it just feels like the plan is better. You know, the process is better. Everything. I don't know. They seem to have a like last year we attacked offensive line and defensive interior. We took Aleem McNeil, we took Levi on the D line, and this year we went with the edge. So we're building inside out. They have a plan. I think hopefully it works out. You know?
Yeah,
it's definitely exciting.
Grubb, what were you thinking when you were watching the draft?
Well, I mean, you guys know where I spoke last week, and obviously Aiden Hutchinson for the Lions. Super excited for the Lions. That was a dream pick for it to land there. But I told you last week, I thought it was a failure if they reached and traded and made things happen to get a skill player. I thought it was just better to sit and wait and take your really good offensive lineman late in the second round or late in the first round or early first round to Aiden Hutchinson, but then go with this late round pick and be patient and go with offensive linemen. I told you interior line I thought was going to be very important to the Lions. And I thought if they rushed it that now they got Jameson Williams, so it's a great pick, right? You're not going to complain with that. Mixing him with Amon St. Brown, right? So we're not going to be mad at that, right? But I still think, like I said, it was patience last week when I was talking about it. These guys could be patient, wait, get their offensive linemen, and they're going to have somebody that was really good there in the receiver picks in the early second, in the late first, and I thought they could have been patient. Now, the trade worked out, but I still think they could have come away with a better interior pick than they got at those picks, and I really do. Like I told you, if there was any disappointment I was going to have, it was if they were impatient. And I know it's exciting as a fan base, right? But I think as a football team, they could have made more of what they got in the later round there because there were so many receivers to pick. This was such a deep receiver pool early that they could have got somebody the same caliber plus added more depth in their interior line. And that's where I thought they should go, right? I told you guys last week, I thought it should have been take whoever's there at 2, right? Whoever it's going to be, the big name that's there at 2. I told you Thibodeau was going to go. Everybody's talking him down. They were going to try to push him down the board, but I knew he was going to go, top 5, 6, 7 draft pick. But I think they could have. I think the Lions could have been more patient there. I know it's an exciting pick to get Jameson Williams, but I really do think they could have been more patient and got that offensive lineman in the late first round there, and then early second gone with, like I told you, there were so many receivers sitting there in that early second round
you
pick.
almost sound like a Vikings fan with more interior offensive linemen. No,
But we talked last week.
The value was better there.
This is what I said, and
it's true.
I just think the value, like you said, like I don't know. I just don't see trading away that. I know, and it's exciting. It's hard to take away from the excitement of that. I don't want to take away from the excitement. But I just thought value-wise, staying patient and getting that interior line built, right? You were gonna have a really good edge in your first pick. It was a given. you were just going to have a really good pick there. And if not, they might have had a good safety or cornerback, but I knew that it was going to come down to really two guys there. They wanted some good edge to come off the ball. But I just wanted them to stay more patient to later in that round. And you guys know what I talked about last week. Now, it's not a failure because of who they picked, but I just think they could have got more value later there in that first and early second round to make them fill out this team to a Dan Campbell. I think they could have had some special guys there, and again, you can't bitch and moan because they got who they got. But I just told you last week, the only thing I didn't want to see was them get aggressive to go after a skill position in the first round. And that's what they did. And to me, it's not a failure, but it was a disappointment. I'm just being honest.
Yeah, we'll have to see how it plays out. Yeah. Because it'll always be compared, right? So, and that's the way Vikings fans are going to have to.
But I told you guys last week,
yeah,
my number one receiver was George Pickens. You guys want to, I think he was
fell farther than I thought, actually.
Yeah, and look how far he fell. That's what I'm saying. The value you could have got in that pick to move up, trade with a division rival, and pick a receiver. I think you could have got the same value later down the board, plus added to your depth where they needed to add to their depth, which was offensive line, maybe even some interior defensive linemen at that pick, and then still made a really, really value pick there in the early second round of a wide receiver or skill position, whatever the hell you want to go to, but it wasn't going to be a running back, obviously. So, I just thought that last week. So again, it's not a disappointment. It's not a letdown, but I just think I think they could have been more patient and it could have worked out just as good as they got. And people would have been just as excited, to be honest.
Yeah, Mike and Vince, what does this pick about Jameson Williams, number one, say about maybe Quintez Cephas and the rest of the wide receiver crew that they have there? And are you then worried about his injury history?
So Quintez Cephas is someone that I've actually really liked. He's obviously drafted by the old regime, which makes it a little more difficult for them to keep him around. I get that because they do like Khalif Raymond too. So we have 9 receivers on the roster right now, and the fringe guys are basically Khalif Raymond, Quintez Cephas, Trinity Benson, who we traded for and ended up losing one of our 7th round picks this year late in the whatever weird NFL process that was, that we lost it like 2 weeks before draft time. And then Javon McKinley. So he'll get cut. Benson will probably get cut. And then if we want to keep 7, that leaves Cephas and Raymond on the roster. I think one of those guys probably gets cut. We only keep one of those guys and we bring in some extra offensive linemen. I just, with the heavy run sets Dan Campbell wants to bring in, I don't see us keeping 7 receivers unless they find some crazy special teams value for somebody. Jameson's going to be the guy. They love Josh Reynolds, but it's going to be St. Brown and Jameson's show. So I don't think they have any weird ties to Quintez Cephas, unfortunately, as much as some fans might, being from the Big Ten and all that kind of stuff.
And with Ben Johnson getting signed on as the offensive coordinator, new offensive coordinator, first year for him, being a tight ends coach, I'm hoping they kind of expand that run first offense to more, maybe some more play action and stuff like that, and more schemes, like opening up, using more wide receivers and stuff like that. So maybe this might be an approach with Ben Johnson. I'm kind of excited to see how well he does.
So you're not worried about kind of Jameson Williams kind of injury history, anything like that, or?
No, we're not going to the playoffs next year. Anyone that's worried about that injury issue for Detroit, I think is being unrealistic about where we're at.
Might be a hammy or something this year. Usually happens, or it can happen sometimes. Right. But that's not going to by the time they're good, it won't matter, is what you're saying, right?
Right. Yeah. I don't care if we win. Yeah. Sorry, I want to win. We need to try to win. Never try to tank.
Got to learn how to win.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But if we win 6 games, who cares? And I'm not rushing James.
That was my big point, though, of pushing up into the early first there, right? And
we're with you on that. We are with you on
the pick that was made.
Yeah.
I mean, guys with hammies, guys with leg injuries. How long do they linger? Is it worth what happened when you could have had more depth? And that's just where I'm at. It's not a sad disappointment or nothing like that. Again,
We're super half and half on it. Like
I
couldn't fully decide because we just got our wide. We both agreed that Jameson Williams was our wide receiver one.
He's very good.
So it was like we were like, okay, it's not maybe what we wanted to do, but not mad about it. It's kind of
no, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like you can't be mad about it. You can't hate on it. It's just what could have been. And you guys weren't on last week, and we were here, and that's what I'm saying. Like it was just. I kind of said I would really like the Lions to be patient in this process and kind of see what fell to them later. There was going to be so much movement, and this is what I did call last for the draft, right? There was going to be so much movement between picks 15 and 25. There was going to be so many trades and so much value that changed hands. I almost wanted the Lions to kind of let see what falls. And if they wanted to trade up a little bit at that point, okay. I just kind of wanted to see some of that action instead of going all in at first. And again, they just told me that it's a bust or nothing like that. But I just kind of wanted to see a little more patience in the pick. I guess that's where I'm at.
I'm with you. Yeah, we actually put it. If I can just sneak this in, we put a tweet out just yesterday that. We gave the draft a B+ if you want to go grades on that, but just the explanation of it. The trade up, while it got us what could be a great player, was still a trade up for a wide receiver that on most draft value charts was that are outside of the outdated Jimmy Johnson one, because Jimmy Johnson is 30 years old and a lot of people shouldn't be using that anymore. Yeah. So when you get to the more analytical ones, that trade was actually won by the Vikings. So we gave it a small ding for that. And then we would have liked to see, like you're saying, we would have liked to see some offensive line taken 100%.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's just where the Lions were at. But you can't not be excited, right? You can't.
100%. Yeah. 100%.
Oh my God, this is the friggin' sky's falling. Like, no, that's not where we're at here. So it was exciting to see. It obviously, as a fan,
the ceiling is much higher. The ceiling is much higher with this, right?
Correct.
And it's not like they necessarily needed that, but like if Jameson Williams pops, then it's like okay, and, like now we're accelerated, right?
And these drafts come,
these
drafts come to that. And these guys, we're not in these rooms. We're not in the war room, right? And they're like, hey, our freaking guys sitting there, and the Vikings are willing to give it. Like, we love this kid. Like, we're not in those rooms. So if they're going, hey, I know this is Dan Campbell team. We're talking about running, and we're talking about being stacked, and we're talking about beefy up front, and we're talking about that. But we're going, hey, we could pair this kid again with St. Brown, and like we're like excited about it. Like, let's just do it. Let's just do it, right? And you have that opportunity, in the moment, you just you got to go for it. You can't, you can't say, because again, there's only so many minutes to pick. So you got to make a decision. This was kind of a split decision where it was like, hey, that's our guy. He's on the board. They're going to give us an opportunity. They're a division rival. Screw it. Let's do it. And that's kind of where it ended up, I think.
And I always wonder, we're not in those rooms, but, when you look at the Lions and maybe from like a Lions perspective, like being, in Detroit, in the area, longtime fans, like you wonder, like if some fans worry about, marketability, right? I mean, perfect opportunity there with Aiden Hutchinson, local guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you think of like splash players, I mean, you don't think of linemen, right? You don't like selling jerseys, you don't think about that. You think about Jameson Williams, he's going to sell a lot of jerseys. And when that franchise, needs kind of that kind of excitement, and maybe that's part of it too. I mean, obviously he's an amazing player.
Yeah, 100%. That excitement, man. Like we've been looking for that ever since. Hasn't been too long, but we lost Stafford. He was our guy. We had Calvin. There was something to always root for, a face of the franchise.
Mm-hmm. But last year, it happened to be Jerry Jacobs.
Yeah, it did. That's our guy.
No, but it was kind of weird going to a Lions game and seeing like it had like Jared Goff and I can't even tell you who the other guys were lined up on the stadium on the banner.
Hawkinson had to be there, right?
I think Hawk was on there and Tracy.
That's it.
Swift, probably.
Or Swift, yeah. And I'm just like, man, that just doesn't look right. They're missing our superstar.
Yeah.
We don't have a superstar, but I think we honestly have a potential to have two superstars right now. So
It reminds me of like the Moneyball scene, when he comes and like all the banners, the players, they drop them. They're like, oh, I guess who do we got now?
right.
Yeah.
You bet. We're definitely not playing Moneyball this year with those 2 first-round picks. Tell you that.
No, that was an all-in thing, and that's what I say. That's why you can't be mad at it. These guys are like, hey, our guy's sitting there. We really like this receiver, and they were probably working deals with other teams at that point, right? So it's not just the Vikings that it ended up with. They're working deals because they said, hey, this guy's on the board, and maybe they didn't expect him to be there at that point. Like, even though it's not that late in the draft, but they're going, man, we just love this kid. They obviously have meetings. They do all the things. They have the meet and greets and all the things. And they're like, hey, this kid's sitting here, and we think he's special. Let's go get him. And they did it. So you can't be mad at that, right? And, it's not a failure.
Were you guys surprised at all that they didn't go quarterback at all in this draft?
No.
So we were always like, if like he said early, if we were Malik guys, that's because that's the guy we liked. But if they like a guy, go take him at 2.
Mhm.
I don't care. Okay, we like Malik, but if it was Pickett, whoever, if you like a quarterback in the draft, go get your guy. That's the position you can reach on. I'm fine with it. We like it. You don't like one? We didn't even want one at 32. Like, don't take. Don't take the guy in the 3rd, 4th round. Don't take Carson Strong, please. That would be a nightmare. And so obviously, Brad Holmes came out after the draft and said all these quarterbacks were evaluated properly, and so we're fine. Yeah. We're good.
If they don't value him at 2, then
not worth it.
We don't need it.
It's not changing the franchise. So.
Exactly. Well, that's exactly right. Like these guys didn't need. And that's what I told you guys last week. Like they don't need a quarter. Like the worst scenario I could see was them picking a QB with one of those draft picks because
32.
What's the point? You got Goff for this year. Goff's going to be there this year regardless, so it doesn't matter. Why not wait till the next season where there's just this plethora of super talent at QB if you're going to pick a QB?
Yes.
Oh,
very undersized.
Okay, you're not. Yeah,
the next year game is tough.
Yeah, it is.
I think Brad told us that he's in on Jared, is what he told us. Yeah,
which is all right for where they're at. I mean, I think you just said that, Grubb, kind of where they're at, and I
not
think
exciting at all. But
but
you take the players that you think are good, like take bad players.
There's just no point to reach or push on a QB in this draft. Yeah. Again, like if they're going to pick one, you might as well just play out this season and see what happens with this draft next year when you have some of these really probably another super talent draft coming out of QB and just have those guys there. So why push it this year? What's the point?
And that's the problem the Bears have had. They've pushed it in the wrong window. They tried for Mitch Trubisky. They, overvalued him and, just made a mistake. And I think,
maybe twice.
Some of these,
maybe
right. and I think just some of these teams being honest of where you're at, with the Lions, it does look like they're on an upward trend, and that's a good thing. But 2022 doesn't seem to be the year. 2023 can be. When I guess what I'd like to get from the Detroit Lions Double Take podcast is your take on who you think is going to win the division this year.
Geez. Unfortunately, I got to say this, but it's that bottom right corner there. I think the
Okay.
Packers got it. You get Aaron Rodgers. It's hard. Like, it's so hard to.
I'm with them. I'm the only one. It's funny.
Well, we're all with him, but I don't want to say yes.
No, yeah, it's true.
I'm not with him.
No, he says Vikings, and
I say Vikings.
Grubb's lower on the Packers than I am for sure.
Kirk Cousins, huh? Throwing
probably not
there.
happening, man. Probably just not happening unless that defense is really good. That's the only way it might happen, which is possible. Really rolling a lot of dice, hoping they all come up sixes, but
I mean, what about that though? I know we're talking draft, and I popped in here late, but the Packers, they're at picking some receivers.
Oh yeah, big time. Let them trade up to get their guy. I love
Yeah, that was the trade.
I do like that they went off-ball linebacker DT in the first round just for the meme. It just really crystallized that. But it's
but uneducated, they picked the guy you talked about last week. So
no, that wasn't me. That was our other Vikings guest.
Oh, was it the other Vikings guy that was talking about that? I mean, he was pretty excited about that guy.
Yeah.
So
no, they were. They say it was like, they said they was like their number one, I believe. I mean, and that's fine. I'll take that trade for at that place just like every year, especially a year where they say where it's supposed to be a flatter talent curve, right? Yeah, that's fine. Go get your guy. Like, see if it works out. I don't know. They don't seem like they're if they're going to give you positive value, just take it every time. Just take it every time. Right? If you think, yeah, go ahead.
I got a question for you. Was it uneducated takes?
Yeah, you can call me
If
Cooper.
you had 12, who'd you want?
Well, I mean, so you take
because I know you're kind of upset about us taking it.
Right? No, I would take Hamilton actually there.
Hamilton?
Yeah. I mean, he's just like maybe the best player in the draft at 12.
I couldn't even believe he was sitting there that late.
Yeah, maybe the right fellow of the Ravens now, so of course he's going to be good.
Yeah. So Hamilton is.
Well, yeah, it's the next Ed. I had already. What's funny to me is I had picked that dude as the next Ed Reed in this draft, and like in my mind I was like, that dude's like an Ed Reed, and then there he goes. I went, are you kidding me? Everybody let him fall there. I mean, come on.
I think he's going to be a bust. I don't know. I'm not in on Kyle Hamilton.
Really? I don't know. Yeah.
Big Notre Dame guy here.
Big Notre Dame guy here. Yeah.
That's part of the reason. Notre Dame.
Uncommon.
And his in-game speed was different, but obviously he was a little bit slower, right? I just don't trust Notre Dame players.
Oh, it's
Harrison
cool.
Smith. Ask uneducated.
Harrison Smith turned out okay. That was a while ago. He
Cole
turned out
Kmet.
really good. I mean, he has the recognition skills of Harrison Smith almost, so that's pretty crazy.
Right.
And he's a lengthy fella. But I don't know. It just seemed like because of positional value, he fell to 12. It had nothing to do with talent. So at that point, if you're at 12, just take the guy who's the best football player. But I would have been happy. Absolutely been happy with Jameson Williams as well.
So
you guys weren't going receiver.
What's that?
You guys weren't going receiver.
No. Oh, McCardle stood on the table and said, "Don't draft a receiver." In the lunchroom during
definitely
like
not
the optional
12
workouts. Yeah, no, yeah.
So my question is, like, what does the Vikings trading what does that say about maybe what Kwesi feels about the talent on the roster now? And I mean, does he feel they're kind of ready to win right now? Because, I don't know. I guess that's my question.
I'm wondering, right? Because I went into this, like, this draft really made me view Kwesi in a different way. Because I just wasn't ready, right? It was kind of like a shock. And it feels like it doesn't necessarily matter to him how good he thinks the roster is. Based on what this was, right? This was all pure 100% trying to, like, can I get value on this? Okay. Can I get value on this? Okay. Oh, Booth is in the middle of the second round, and we have a low 20s, high teens. You know what I mean? Oh yeah, go get him. Yeah, it doesn't cost that much. Go get him. Right. But other than that, it was like, oh, take the positive. All right. If there's positive value here, okay, we got offers at 32, but we have Lewis Seen in the teens, right? And by the way, so did I think because it's hard to read. The Cowboys, according to their enhanced chart that they revealed, was in the teens on that one apparently as well. Though I can't.
The Vikings were almost like it was almost, to me, if you ask me, it was like, I don't know if anybody is like a Madden guy, but I'm a total Madden guy, and I do like Dynasty on Madden. And it was like when you don't want to make your draft picks, you just start going and you like you're like, well, let's see who will trade me what for the first pick. And then they're like, oh, I'll take this one. And then it gets to that pick, and you're like, I don't really want to pick anybody, so you kind of kept doing that till you're like, all right, now I'll just pick somebody.
Yeah, now I can. Yeah. It's a very manly approach, I suppose. You could definitely put it that way.
Where you don't want to make your pick.
Yeah, exactly. And they took some weird ones too, right? So the first two, great. like I'm happy with the players. Like Lewis Seen is a good value at 32 based on people who are a lot smarter than me. I didn't know like a lot about him, but just watch him play. That's a football player. That's a very fast, athletic football player who knows how to hit hard and clean. And Booth, I think a lot of Vikings fans would have been happy with Booth at 32. They would have been happy trading back into the early 20s and taking Booth. That's totally fine. So like it's all if they hit really, and so that's all that really matters. If Seen and Booth both hit, like okay, secondary remade, one draft, right? You know what I mean? And then it's like okay, now it comes together. But then like picks like Ed Ingram was so weird, right? And it's hard to value him because people hate him because we're not going to get into it, but he has some very
Oh, sorry, did we lose you?
Okay. No, I don't know if you did. I might have touched my cable. No, but he had some bad accusations against him. If you want to look into that, that's you. I sure did. But it's weird because that's almost like a Belichick pick, right? When you went pick, you're trying to like it was either Ed Ingram. They were planning on taking one of the two interior offensive linemen that went right before him, and they're like, oh, who do we got? Who's still good? Ingram. Or they have a different grade than everyone else, right? And that's kind of what I'm wondering. I was like, these people just do it differently than we're used to. Definitely in Minnesota, right? Rick wasn't like a dinosaur. He wasn't like Belichick, like always picking like the D2 recruit or something like that, right? But
which they did this year too.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, of course they did. That's what I'm saying, and that's what Brian Asamoah and Ed Ingram felt like, because there was some really good talent at both of those position groups on the board. With like Nakobe Dean, I guess he was hurt. I think the injury is the only reason he fell. I think the whole league knew that there was a really good chance he wasn't going to play. But yeah, there was really good talent on the board at both those positions, which were, ranked by a lot of, fairly smart people, not as smart as the people actually making the decisions, but as a lot higher than Ingram and Brian Asamoah. So that was interesting to me, because then I'm kind of losing it, and I'm like, okay, these people just have their own formula for everything, and we're just gonna have to see it play out. I'm okay with it.
I say, is this kind of like a new era of Vikings? Like I feel like you kind of knew, what was going on, and now it's kind of like just trying to refigure this out.
Yeah, we just like said analytics, and we're like, yeah, that's you know what I mean. But no one knew what a GM who brought a different perspective like this would bring, right?
Well, do you worry about that, Coop?
I don't really worry about it, because I want to see it.
Okay. Well, the Browns have got some great players, but what the hell have the Browns done? So do you worry?
Yeah,
about
exactly.
That?
Yeah, I mean, the Browns have done more than the Vikings in the last 2 years.
Not in the game they played last year. They both didn't do anything.
Oh my god, that was the
worst football game I've ever seen.
That was the only one I missed, and I rewatched it, and I was like, what the fuck? But yeah, I'm actually okay with it, because I like when someone brings a new concept to team building to the NFL, and I like to see it play out. Like, how fun is it that the Rams just traded all their first round picks? Like, that is so fun that someone was like, actually, I think this might be a good idea if we do it right. Right. And it's like, that's
another Madden concept.
Exactly. Right. Exactly.
And then they sat back and got drunk and made fun of the Patriots. Holy cow.
That was awesome. You must talk about those D2 recruits by Bill Belichick.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm okay with. I want to see how it plays out. I think it's a really interesting way, right? To look at team building. And I thought this draft really, the Vikings fans were not ready for this draft. There's a lot that's still really hated. I'm mostly just like ripping copium joints over here, like, one after another, and like I finally like tweeted my way through it to the point where I feel okay with this. But a lot of the fan base is like upset, right? And like a lot of the media that cover the team, who have always been calling for a more analytical approach, are also upset, right? And so it's interesting, because like this is what we asked for, right? This is it. Like, and it's not.
You wanted change.
Yeah, exactly.
You wanted change.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But
this is it.
It's like old people though. You want change, but you don't want change.
Then it hits you. Yeah.
And then when the change happens, you're like, I don't want change.
I mean, look, how much better does the defense look today than when Kwesi took the job?
Mm.
All right, how much better does the Viking defense look right now after this draft, right? And like, okay, maybe I mean, if Scene and Booth both miss, you're just like, okay, now you're really screwed, right? Because you traded down and the two guys were terrible.
Right.
But right, it seems like at least one of them's probably going to be pretty good.
Especially when he could have had a couple of special defensive players at the pick.
Oh yeah, if Hamilton pops, oh my God, it's always we're never going to live it down.
What about the rest of the Vikings draft? I mean, any names pop out there to you?
Yeah, I think like the overall theme that I'm noticing, and this goes out throughout the whole draft, and we'll get to some of the later round picks with this too. Young, athletic, right? Young and athletic. There's some really young players here, right? And some crazy athletes. Ty Chandler is insane, exactly. And Naylor is just a freak. They're all freaks. Every single one of these people. Just if you look at their relative athletic scores, is like usually in the green, right? And it's pretty interesting. Even like Nick Muse, the last pick, it's like, all right, well, with the traits and age, right? You know what I mean? It's an interesting way, and it kind of speaks to the whole process that we've been talking about for the last few minutes. It's like, all right, we set down guardrails that we think are smart, and we follow them to the end. And at the end, after value has been accumulated over time, we will profit. And so like we'll see, because when you take a lot of shots on like every single one of these guys, you only need one or two to be good football players to turn their traits into like usable assets for the team.
Right.
And so I'm okay with it. Like honestly, I don't dive too deep into the draft.
Well,
like,
I mean, again,
but like as a retrospective, when I can go back and look at some of these guys, I'm like, oh, okay, that guy went a 4.3. Oh, okay, that, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It's interesting.
But
that guy's 21, you know?
Yeah, I've seen, right, your first pick overall works out, and Hamilton they're like, let's just say they're equal talents. Then you really want, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, so who you could have had there, you still pick. Yeah. I think it's kind of like you saw him do what he was doing he goes, hey, I can have the safety. We're going to get like, but we can have the same type of talent. That's where I was with the Lions pick. I'm like, you can have this receiver, but you can have the same type of receiver later in the pick or later in the draft. I know it's different when you're picking high up there, but I'm like, you can almost get the same value plus more if you pick down here. And that's what I was kind of wanting from the Lions. So seeing them do that with the safety position, where you could have Hamilton at 12, but you go down and you pick, but they're like, well, I kind of see him as equal value.
Right. Yeah. And seed might actually be better value. The issue with safety is if you're just okay, you're not really profiting there because you're not even saving money.
Correct.
If he is, you do have to be good, right? So Booth has a little bit of a longer leash in that regard. But seeing if he's like just like a fine like safety in 4 years, and it's like, all right, well, but still, it's good value.
It depends. Yeah. That pick becomes, what does Hamilton become like when you could have had him?
Exactly.
Right? So
the whole thing. We're
like
gonna be tortured. Yeah, we're gonna be tortured.
Yeah. So, but if he's average or below, then you're like, hey, it really didn't really matter, and we got what we wanted anyway out of that. So.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of these, like between the Vikings and the Lions with the draft, which team is better set up in the long term to compete for the division? The Lions,
the Lions.
Probably
is it the Lions?
Probably,
would you guys say that?
It's hard. It depends on if one of their if they can find some skill position players in the end, because they're going to have to go up against like Viking, like a Justin Jefferson in the future, like that type of thing. But as of right now, the Lions are in a really strong position, and their GM looks like Holmes is just doesn't miss so far. So it's interesting. I would go Lions personally.
What do you guys feel?
I think so too, that the Lions would be the one to beat. Hopefully the one to beat here soon. The only concern I have is quarterback.
Yeah.
I'm not huge on golf personally. His average was 6.6 yards a pass.
No.
And
he took a year to get to it. Yeah.
Per attempt was 6.6. Now that's a check down quarterback. That's Eli when he was like on his retirement year. When he was
but a check down, who needs more time? Who needs time in the pocket too? So it's not where you want to be.
We talked about that last season with the play action crap, where like he's just not a good play action passer because he doesn't see the field after the turnaround and play action.
Nobody knows
go ahead, guys.
he's not going deep. Everybody knows it. So it's like,
It's how we want to build this offense, which is unfortunate too. It's play action pass, so it's tough to see.
But sometimes build it and they will come. You might not even have to draft a quarterback. That's what I've been saying that for a while now. I think they should just land a vet.
Yeah, something like that could work out. That
Brady,
nice.
let's go.
Brady 2020.
But we were talking about the Ravens earlier with Hamilton, but the Ravens have done that so many times with just average quarterbacks, and they had such this dominant, smothering defense, and that's why I love Dan Campbell, because he's building this, team atmosphere that is just. It's not a ground and pound, but they're going to be aggressive, and he wants that, and he wants these guys to be tough. And if they could build a defense that can hold up Jared Goff, look, we talked about that last season. The reason the Rams with Jared Goff were really good is not because of Jared Goff and that offense and McVay. It was because of what that defense did that season, right? So the same thing with the Lions. You can always build a defense to protect that quarterback. The Patriots have done it for many times. Everybody wants to give credit to Brady, but that defense for so many years of Brady's early years, that Belichick defense is what took them and won them Super Bowls. So you can do it. I mean, not that Brady is Jared Goff, right? But you can do it.
Yeah, our thing with that is
you can do it.
100%. You want to build your defense, but I don't think they're mutually exclusive events. You can build a defense and go find a quarterback at the same time.
Correct. Well, you can have an average quarterback.
Is this a 2-year plan?
Quarterback.
Is this like a 2-year plan then for Goff?
We want to be we need to.
Yeah. Oh, this has got to be his last year, right?
They're saying
I'm just
2023. We got to be in the playoffs in 2023.
Okay.
Yeah. I still think this is the season this is Goff's last season, and this is what I was telling you guys all season long this year. It's going to come down to the draft next year. Look, the Lions, they're going to be middle of the pack this upcoming season, right? And I think it gives them a chance with some extra draft picks to make a run on one of these guys that's coming out this next season. And there's going to be some great QB talent that's there sitting there to get. This is not the year to get it, but next draft. I've been talking that since the beginning of the season, all of our episodes, you guys hear me say, it's not this draft, it's the next draft. It's so important. And I think the Lions are going to fall into this where they get this really special QB, but they've already built this really, really balanced team.
I am with you. And, man, if these quarterbacks come out next year and they look great, then that's awesome. But we sat here all last year and people were saying pass on QB last year, pass on for next year, blah, blah, blah. Same thing. And guess what? The quarterbacks, we look at some old mock drafts from last year. For this draft, they were looking at Sam Howell going 2. They were looking at Kenny Pickett was nowhere near the top,
Right.
Keaton Slovis. Todd McShay had Keaton Slovis. Spencer Rattler was the name.
Rattler was the man, right? He was
the unknown. It's just the unknown part gets tough.
It's such a far gap between now and then.
100% hear what you're saying.
And I personally think Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, some of these other guys, they still got a lot of work to do.
They're tiny.
A lot of work. I mean,
I'm not on board with some of those guys, but there's some talent coming out in that draft, and it's a lot better. Let's just say it's a million times better than this draft as far as a pool to draft from.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So I mean, even before then, I did a QB, and it's funny if you actually listen to my podcast, which is Good Iron Girl podcast. Mm-hmm. I picked out Rattler, and I said, and this was before the college season started, and I said, I just don't see it. I don't see it. I don't see a QB who is accurate. I don't see a QB who steps into his throws. I see a guy who's got legs, but I don't see so. But I do actually like Sam Howell. I do like Sam Howell. Mm-hmm. I do think his accuracy, he has something to build off of. I do think his throwing talent has something to build off of. But again, if this year you were drafting a quarterback, you're looking for a guy that you've got to build up and build off of, right? So next season you're going to get some talent that to me is NFL ready. This year, right, you had Pickett go to Pittsburgh, and that's about the most NFL ready quarterback there was, and he's probably most years
Hey,
would
we'll
be
see,
like
maybe.
a third or fourth quarterback, right?
Maybe,
So,
probably at least. Yeah,
We were
Ritter,
just
yeah. Ritter could be up there too. I was surprised maybe the Lions, honestly, maybe didn't take a fly on Ritter.
yeah, I
He
guess,
was-
but
Yeah.
it's just not the season. It's just not the season.
He was the one that we were like,
maybe
okay, at 32,
Yeah.
yeah, everyone was so much higher. Like a week ago, everyone was like, "Yeah, 32, maybe Ritter," but now it's like it's like a UDFA,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
like.
So
Look,
with-
though, if you want a project, that's fine. But if you don't want a project, this wasn't the year. This wasn't the year.
We were like, if you want to treat him like Trey Lance, I don't care.
Mhm.
Like the
Yeah.
Niners made the move. They decided that was their guy, and we're gonna let him sit. That's fine. So if that was the route Brad Holmes wanted to go, we were good with it. If he wanted
But
to
it's
say,
also hard as a Lions guy, and you have Goff. Goff is not he's not a QB that you're looking to build somebody under, right? Like you're not going to bring somebody in to say, "Hey,
Yeah,
Goff's going to train you to be the next superstar," right? So
Jimmy
it's-
G didn't
it's
want
kind-
that either, though. You know,
yeah. But it's
Yes.
kind of tough to say like this year we're going to have this QB project, and he's gonna, now if you have a Rodgers or you have a Brady or you have a one of these guys, you can say, "Hey, I'm going to bring this guy in. I have a superstar quarterback, but
what
he's
happened to Jordan
aging."
Love?
Jordan Love, though, now they wasted a first round
Jordan Love.
pick.
Yeah,
So,
see,
Yeah,
and that's
that
what that
was
is.
the
That's what it would have
Packers'
been. Yeah, that's
That was the
interesting.
Packers'
Yeah.
fault. That was
Yeah,
all.
man.
That was
It really
all.
was.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was
Yeah.
terrible.
Hey,
That's not like Brett Favre is there and you bring in Aaron Rodgers. That's like I don't. Why? What?
They
I
traded
still
up.
question that
was
pick.
a wild
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
a wild one.
Yeah.
so Andy,
and he's still
Yes,
proving
sir.
no matter what. Every time he comes in a game, he does not look NFL ready. And every year they go, well, he just hasn't had enough playing time. And I'm like, okay, that's great, but now we're so many years in. Like how much playing time? I mean, if you're Brett Favre didn't have playing time. Aaron Rodgers didn't have playing time. If you're
Yeah.
good, you're good. I mean, that's just how it is.
Well, there were Packers fans that were like, "Oh, we're gonna trade Jordan Love and we're gonna get this pick." I'm like, no, you're not.
Who's gonna trade for him?
Yeah.
There was so much, and that's why, and we'll probably next week talk more about Bears and Packers stuff. But I think, Packers fans been very, I think, just delusional on thinking a lot of things. And there's a difference between being
Delusion
a fan.
is the word.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fan and kind of an analyst, because I think you can kind of like even as a Bears fan, I can step back and say, people are like, well, the Bears are going to stink. Yes, this year they are. I'm okay if they get like a top 5, top 3 draft pick, because that means they get value, and 2023 and beyond is the
they pick
year.
a quarterback there, though, right? Is that what this means?
Well, if they do,
They
all
might
right.
trade up from 3 to 1.
Yeah.
Well, right. But if they do, that might be a good opportunity then for the trade down and get more
Yeah,
picks,
sure.
more value.
Exactly.
So I like that for the
Exactly.
Bears, because there's so many holes with the Bears. But when you look at the Packers, there was so many Packer fans were like, "Oh yeah, it was so much buzz. They're going to trade Jordan Love, and we're going to get this and that." I'm like, "What are they going to get? 5, 6, 7?
Not gonna get
Nothing. You can't
Nothing.
get anything.
Yeah.
Maybe a 6. Maybe a 6.
So
Maybe.
obviously they
Yeah.
didn't trade him, which I
Yeah.
didn't think they would. Christian Watson will
nobody's
be
going to.
interesting.
No one wants him. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So when you look at it, so that's why it'll be interesting to kind of see how that fits. That's why I'm high on the Vikings. I just see the Vikings knowns are more than or better than the other teams unknowns. And, and the Packers known is Aaron Rodgers, but that also comes with knowing it takes him a long time to trust receivers, and it takes a long time for receivers to develop. Devontae Adams, it took till year 3, right?
Oh man.
So,
if you remember, Devontae Adams was a bust.
Not
He was
good.
not.
Yeah,
They
that
were-
was
the
so
first
weird.
2 years, they were like, Devontae Adams
Yeah.
sucks. In fact, I traded him in one of my dynasty fantasies. So like, this guy sucks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was
Yeah.
like, I don't even want this guy.
So you have, I mean, there's, and I think when you've been the top of the division for so long, you can't really see the truth about things. So they're like, oh, well, we'll be fine. We don't need Devontae. Oh yeah, we traded up. Oh yeah, we got Christian Watson. And I liked him for the Bears. I think he's going to be a great player. It's going to take time. And it just doesn't make sense because they don't really have time. They want
Well,
to win now.
The dynasty, the Packers obviously haven't been Super Bowl dynasty, but they've been dynasty dominant as far as making the playoffs, making runs with Aaron Rodgers, and they've always had talent around him. And same thing with Favre, right? They always had talent, to match some of that. And I think they're gonna be for a rude awakening. We've talked about this before, us, in previous episodes going into this season, not last season, right? We're gonna say, I think they sold their soul to the devil this season. I really do. And I was telling you guys this before. I really think they just condemned themselves for years and years.
And we had a lot of really, really smart Packers fans on the show too. And pretty much to a T, they all preferred to trade him. And I was like, wow, that's actually really interesting. And they're like, actually, we don't care if we're bad for a year because we're always good.
Let's find out. Let's find out what Jordan Love has.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's find out what Jordan Love has.
Never gonna do that.
And let's move on, right? We'll get something for Rodgers, but now you're not going to get anything for Rodgers, and now you're stuck in this kind of purgatory of salary cap and having to figure out things each year as we go. And now you're not going to draft a quarterback, and because Aaron Rodgers next year when there's this thicker pool of quarterbacks, he's not going to go, hey, why don't you draft another quarterback, right?
I mean, with like the 22nd pick too,
So these guys, I think they really condemn themselves to something here. And I told you guys before, I thought they were both out. I knew Adams was out, and I really thought Rodgers was
you did
be
say,
out.
I'll believe it when I see it. That's my thing with Rodgers.
Stayed. Hey, Rodgers stayed. He's in now. He's in. Yeah. He's not going anywhere.
No. He's retiring to Packers. I hope.
Yeah, it's not happening. But
for sure.
At the same time, you got to have talent around you. I don't care who you are. And it proved in the playoffs last year against the 49ers. Like, if you only have one receiver and you play in a bad weather game, which you're in Green Bay, like, you're going to play in some bad weather games. If I can shut down your one weapon, you're in trouble. So what are you going to do this year when there's just a running back and just Aaron Rodgers, right? Like, it's a totally different scheme that they have to come up with. Aaron Rodgers can only do so much. He really can. I mean, he can only do so much himself. And so I'm interested to see.
And tell you what, it's going to be a bizarre world when we talk about how the Lions, I think, are doing all the right moves, right? I mean, we've seen them kind of not make the right moves for a while, but honestly, I do really like what they're doing, with the division, and it's hard not to like TJ Hawkinson from Iowa. So.
From Iowa.
The big hack.
Could be a good dynamic trio there.
As long as they're not running play action, everything's good.
As long as they get a quarterback, it doesn't matter what they do with Goff. He's not. Hey, this is last year, no matter what. Oh man,
we
could you imagine?
Think the addition of Jameson Williams is really going to help TJ out a lot too.
At least having someone who has the ability.
Puts it all the attention somewhere else. Give him that chance to start being that first round pick. Show us some talent, So we're excited to watch TJ this year for sure.
Oh, so absolutely.
Vince, you're not all that sold on him?
On
Hawkinson?
Oh, I love it. This is my jersey.
Yeah, he's huge.
Okay.
I played tight end in high school. I'm a tight end guy.
So Mike, you were a little bit lower on him then.
What's that?
You were a little bit lower on him than Vince then.
I'm actually, when we first met, we actually work at a hardware store together. That's how we met, started talking ball, stuff like that. I didn't like TJ because I said, if you're going to, catch the ball and you're trying to get in the end zone, you don't hurdle over a DB. You go through them. And then you got a concussion, all this stuff, and
But we brought him around.
Right? But I'm back on the train. Hey, you know what?
That was one of the best answers I've seen on the show, where he goes, "That's my jersey."
Right. You betcha. That's my guy.
Well, thanks. We definitely appreciate you guys joining us. I know next week we'll talk a little bit more Bears and Packers.
Can't wait.
So, where can everyone find you again, Mike and Vince?
We're on Twitter right now. Detroit Lions Double Take. Search that and you should find us.
Working on a YouTube page right now. Got some podcasts about to drop on Spotify and some other different podcast stuff like that, like Apple, Google, stuff like that. So we just started in April, so we're kind of excited to get the ball rolling here. So
Yep. So
we appreciate
having
Yes.
us on.
Good luck,
Seriously.
you guys,
Yeah.
man.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is fun. Thank you.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Absolutely.
And
Thank you,
Gridiron
guys.
Grubb, where can
Yeah.
everyone find you?
You can find me Gridiron Grubb, obviously at Twitter, on YouTube, Spotify, Apple. All that'll be coming back. Right now, obviously, this is the main event for me until I get all those going back up for this season. But
Yeah. Your studio.
that's it.
You need your studio back.
I know I need the studio back. but
You had the best studio of all of us.
He did.
I know, but I'm working on it. I've got it's in production.
Very good. And Cooper
Right now,
working
it's just the beach behind me.
There you go.
Hey, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Where can everyone find you again, Cooper?
You can't. Don't look.
I'm gonna look. I'm gonna look on
Okay.
Vikings Twitter. Vikings
Yeah, you
Twitter
can find
is,
me just around the way. You
Oh,
can find
yeah.
me here on Wednesdays and at Uneducated Takes.
if there was a Super Bowl for Twitter, team Twitter page, followings, or whatever, Vikings Twitter would hands down be the Super Bowl winner. It's just amazing.
Depends on what the game is. If it's dragging
And
people,
so-
it's Jacksonville. If it's being weird, it's the
that's true.
Vikings for sure.
Yes, exactly.
But watching the internal battles in Vikings
Ooh,
land on
so
Twitter
spicy.
is
You
some of
love
the
to see
funnest
it.
I've seen.
You love to see it. That is what 4 years of Kirk Cousins does to you. It wrecks you because when you look at Kirk Cousins, you see yourself and you see your own failures and you see your own successes, and you have to live with that while you're looking into your own face, and it breaks you. It breaks you.
Jared Goff.
Oh man, is it gonna be 4?
Well.
Oh man.
Don't even put that out there.
And everyone can find me NFL Outdated on Twitter and YouTube, all that fun stuff. Once again, thanks again, guys. This has been Freezin for NFC North Podcast, episode number 20. See you guys later.
See ya.
Peace out.
Adios.